So you want to make $100 an hour in your detailing business. That's a good goal because typically, just as a whole, if you're able to hit $100 an hour, typically speaking, that will cover your margin in terms of making sure you're actually profitable on those jobs. So there's two things you have to break down, right? You're gonna you have what you pay your employees or yourself, right? Because in the last episode I said think of yourself as an employee, right? So whatever you want to pay yourself, that is your pay, or if you're paying someone else, right? Then you have what you charge to the customer, and the goal that you always want to have is to have the what you pay the employee 25% or less than what you charge to the customer. So, for instance, and the reason why you want to do that big picture is you don't want to have labor cost equal 40, 50, 60% of your total revenue, because that just means you're very inefficient with either your pricing, meaning you need to raise your prices, maybe your budgeted hours where you're not quoting enough hours to complete those jobs. Um, or three, simply like you're just kind of throwing things at the wind and you really have no idea what's going on, right? And you're just like really inefficient and you're slow and you're not charging right. So you want to keep the what you pay your employee 25% or less of what you charge to the customer. So typically speaking, $100 will typically cover any cost, just because unless you're paying your employee $25 an hour or more, $100 is going to cover that, right? So if you wanted to pay someone, $20 an hour minimum, you'd want to charge 80. If you wanted to pay them, 17, then 75 would meet that criteria. But again, that's why it's so important, as I mentioned in the last episode, that you want to think of yourself as an employee, not a business owner. Because as a business owner, you're gonna say, "Oh, well, I'll pay myself, 1,000 this time, and next time I'll pay myself 15, and next time I'll pay 800, and next time I'm gonna pay myself 1,200." But you're doing all the work in your business. So if you wanted to say, "Hey, I want to make $19 an hour," well, then you want to charge at a minimum $75 an hour, to make sure you're keeping your costs under 25%, right? Now it's going to be a bit different when you're a solo detailer, because like you're working literally 100% of the time. So you'd want to assume like a 40-hour work week. You don't want to say, "Well, I work 60 hours, so do I get overtime too?" Not in that scenario, because obviously you're the business owner, so you do everything. But just assume like a 40-hour work week. So on a 40-hour work week, if you wanted to pay yourself $19 an hour, that'd be $760 a week. So that's how you kind of want to do those calculations if you want to. Not that you should follow the 25% or less, because if and I know I'm already going a little bit off topic, but this is why it's so important to understand how everything is integrated together, right? Because now if your prices are wrong, if what you're paying your employees are 25%, let's say it's 30% or 35% of the total revenue, you already have a business that's running thin on margins. So now if you want to say, "Oh, well, I want to grow and make more money," but you already have the base foundation off, as you get more customers, or let's say you spend more money on ads, that's only gonna further thin out your margins. And then let's say, hey, we are actually getting a lot more leads and we actually are growing, right? Well, now we need another van to go and fulfill those services. So let me get another van. So now you add another overhead cost of the van, of insurance, of outfitting that van. And all that happens because from the very beginning, your numbers were never making sense. They're not set up to be they're not set up to be profitable over a long period of time. As you get that new van or hire another employee or you start spending money on ads, all that happens is you start to diminish your margin more and more and more and more, to where at one point you're super busy, you're booked out, you're making, doesn't matter, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a day, but for some reason you're not able to actually grow the accounts, like your bank account, with money. And every time you want to pay yourself, you're like, "Man, it's getting harder and harder to, like, for me to pay myself what I want to pay." And you're looking at the numbers and you're saying, "Man, all this money is coming in, but like, why am I not like keeping most of it?" Or like, "Why are we making 40,000 a month, but like, where's all the money going?" Because at the start of next month, like the account is so low. Like, how are we doing this, right? That all comes from this portion of like your foundation, the base layer of your numbers and what you're paying employees and how you're doing all these things are so off that like you can't scale an unprofitable business. You literally just can't do that unless it's intentional, because that is a strategy. It's intentional. And two, which is the more important part, is you have the money to fuel that. So like taking a step further, startups, tech startups, like let's go with some big name brands like the Ubers, any of those companies, like a lot of those tech companies, a lot of those companies can go 5 years, 10 years, 15 years without turning a profit because they have the financial backing to do that, right? Uber didn't make a profit until like 2022, right? And that's because they had billions of dollars in funding to fuel their growth. This is applicable with any kind of tech startup. Amazon, same situation, right? You have the funding behind you to say, and this happens at all levels, right? There's companies that have funding of 10 million, right? There's companies that have funding of 500 million. But it's the same premise of, we can run at a loss or at a break-even point, or let's say on razor-thin margins, because we have, 50 million in the bank that's holding us over. And, we're going to reach profitability, 4 years from now. And we still have to plan accordingly and make sure our projections are right. And we still have to do all these, we still have to do everything correct, right? We still have to project properly. Look at Peloton, right? Weren't they worth like X amount of $1 billion? And now what? Where's Peloton now, right? So because you have funding, you can hold yourself at a loss because you have the money to do that. 99.9% of detailers or any small business is not going to have that luxury. So when you're pricing your jobs, they have to be done right. They have to be profitable. So $100 an hour is a good marker if you understand all the other components that you need to do in order to be profitable. So like $100 an hour is a good goal. Like for instance, with our services, our base minimum that like if we just base minimum that we go for is $85 an hour. Whether that's an interior detail or a correction or a vinyl wrap, or like let's just let's say the vinyl wrap, like it takes a bit longer than what we expected, whatever. Okay, like hey, our bare minimum that we want to go for is always $85 an hour. Now, as far as how much we want to make per hour, there's no cap to that. Just the other day, depending when I release this, like let's say yesterday, let's say 3 days ago, we had a 500 or 800. I think it was 800. I think it was $800 job. I think it was a vinyl wrap job. Took Angel maybe at max an hour and like 15 minutes to complete. It was $800. That's it. You can basically say that's $800 an hour because like from when it came in to when it came out, it was like an hour and 15 minutes, right? There's other jobs where we make $166 an hour, $120 an hour, $145 an hour, right? And these are actual objective, like the amount of man hours we put on that car equals that hourly rate. It's not like, oh, well, like, in total, if you calculate everything together, and not like the amount of hours that were worked on that car equals out to $800 an hour or $166 an hour or $140 an hour. Like that's very typical, especially for tint, especially for a vinyl wrap job. Like those, we're able to hit a pretty large number. But I wouldn't say go and try to hit $100 an hour for the sake of saying you hit $100 an hour. Because yes, it sounds fantastic. Oh, look, I'm a college dropout and I charge $100 an hour. All right, fantastic. The issue with that is, one, if your brand, if you don't have the reputation, if you don't have the leads to, for the most part, for detailers, if you charge $100 an hour, you're probably on the premium side of pricing in your area, right? I'm not saying you're the most expensive. I'm saying you're probably up there in pricing. So if your branding isn't branding, right? As far as you don't got the reviews, the brand awareness of being in the community for so long, all these things. If you don't have the reputation, you have bad reviews, maybe your skill level, just like you don't really put out the best work. And if you want more in-depth training on literally all of this, and you want me to actually go deeper into the subject matter, then check out my online training platform called Detailers Growth Academy. I break down a lot of these things in terms of knowing your numbers. Inside the module, there's a training that I don't know how many lessons are there, but it covers a lot of the lessons, breaking down the hourly rate, employee rate, how to price your services, calculating budgeted hours, calculating costs, like going deep into actually understanding your numbers so you know what's a price and how to understand the number side of your business to make sure you're actually profitable. Because that's the whole point of this, is to get profit so we can make money and take it home and do whatever we want to do with that. So if you want more in-depth training on running your business, marketing, sales, operations, knowing your numbers, click the link down below and check it out. So I'm not saying you suck. I'm just saying your skill level at that time, like you've been in business for 6 months and you've been detailing for 8 months, let's say. You just don't have the experience or the skill set to like deliver A1 quality service because you're still learning. So I'm not saying in a bad way. I'm just saying based on where your business is at, like you can't provide the top 1% of results in your area as a detailer, right? And then 3, again, maybe you're lacking on leads, right? Like you don't have 20 leads coming into your business a week, or you don't have 10 leads coming into your business a day, right? Like maybe you get 5 leads a week, and it's like, well, it's hard to charge a premium price on that when like you're very like dry on the leads and giving yourself those opportunities to sell your services. So to just simply say, oh, like I want to make $100 an hour isn't always like again, depending on where you are in your business, isn't the default answer you need to go to of like making money, right? Again, that's why it's dependent on like, hey, is this your sole income? Do you have a part-time job? Is this something you just want to do on the weekends? Do you care about hitting your numbers? Like how fast do you want to grow your business? Because, if let's say there's a 6-hour detail, right? So obviously, if you want to charge $100 an hour, you're going to charge $600 for that detail. Now, again, depending on your area, your market, your customers, and all this stuff, maybe that's too high. Maybe that's like, hey, that's super premium. But let's say, again, given your specific scenario, you can actually charge $75 an hour. And like, you're still like, you don't have a mobile van, you don't have a car note, you don't have like, it's like, hey, I basically have no expenses. You can charge, let's just say $75 an hour. And now you can charge $450. And again, depending on all these areas, is that super premium? Is that not premium? Does that make more sense? But if you're able to charge $75 an hour and still be profitable because you don't have all these expenses or a team and it's just you and you're doing it on the side and whatever, well, then now you can charge $450, still be like very profitable, and it still makes sense, right? So if you're just getting started and you're like, oh, I'm starting my business. Yeah, like, hey, I want to make $100 an hour. That's just, it doesn't make sense. Like, it makes sense if you, no, even then, like, it simply doesn't make sense to go like by default and say, oh, I want to make $100 an hour, right? Because then the next part to that too is like, you can say, like, if I ask a detailer, what's your target hourly rate goal? A lot of people say $100 an hour. I say, fantastic. How are you tracking that? Well, we don't really track it. So how do you know you're hitting? How do you know whatever number you are hitting? How do you know if that's $100 an hour? Well, it's because, it's 2 of us and we finish it in 2 hours. So that roughly comes out to $100 an hour. The second part to the equation, aside from like setting it and like all these other things, is making sure you're tracking that and you're actually hitting $100 an hour. 10 out of 10 detailers that I speak to, when we have this conversation of how much you're making and what is it, 10 out of 10 times they are wrong on their numbers. 10 out of 10 times. One, they're not tracking anything. So even if you gave me an objective number, if you're not tracking these numbers, you yourself cannot hold yourself accountable to any number because you're just guessing, right? So that's already one part, is that you're guessing. 2, the way in which a lot of detailers are pricing their jobs. Like for instance, if you let's say it's a one, I don't know, I'm making up an example here. It's a 1-hour job and you charge $100, right? But 2 of you work on that job for that 1 hour. The detailers will say, oh, we made $100 this hour, which is false. If there's 2 of you working on that job and it takes you 1 hour to complete, you charged $50 per man per hour. Remember, it's per budgeted hours. So whether it's, like if there's one job, if there's a job that's gonna take you 1 hour and you're gonna charge $100, only one person can work on that job because one person works for 1 hour and then make $100 an hour. If 2 people work on that one job that's gonna pay $100, That's $50 per man per hour. Because if I just give you one $100 bill and there's two people working in 1 hour, each of you don't get $100 because that'll be $200. If I have a $100 bill and two people work on it in 1 hour, I need to split that 100 into 50s. This person gets 50 and this person gets 50. So a big part to all of this is like, because I've talked to so many detailers and it's like, oh yeah, our hourly rate goes about $100 an hour. And, we want to focus on correction and codings. It's like, fantastic. Great goal, right? $100 is always proper, right? And then you go into like asking, well, how long do you typically take? What's your average ticket price on your services, right? And then you ask a few questions and you're like, oh, so like you're not tracking it. The way you're calculating these hours are wrong. And the way you're pricing these services are wrong. So again, like I said at the beginning, you can't scale an unprofitable business. It literally will not work out. Like you'll just grow yourself to failure because you can't, like if there's no margin in your numbers, you're not going to get more money in the account. You're not going to be able to spend more money on ads. You're not going to be able to have enough money to hire someone. So yes, like you get more jobs and there's more revenue coming in, but for some reason there's no profit. And remember, revenue is for likes, profit is for growth. Everyone and their mama likes to talk about how much they make. We charge $1,200 for this detail. Today we're making $3,000. How we hit $40,000 this month. How we grew to a $500,000 business. It's always a top line. It's always, hey, look at this number, right? Look at me touting on social media about my number. How about how much we're making, right? Revenue is for likes. Profit is what fuels growth. Revenue, likes, profit, growth. You can have a $1.2 million business and have zero money in the account. You can have a $400,000 per year business and make, $60,000 per year in profit on top of what you pay yourself. So with $100 an hour, one, you need to charge properly. If it's going to take you 2.5 hours to do a very basic interior detail that's not dirty, that doesn't require any seat shampooing, it's the most basic, it's a basic service, but it's going to take you 2.5 hours. You have to charge $250 for that job if it's going to take you 2.5 hours, right? The longer you take, whether it's 30 minutes or 2 hours, the faster your hourly rate decreases. That's why I say I wouldn't go on by default and say, oh, I have to make $100 an hour. Like that's the goal. It's really not. It's based on, again, like I said, all these things, right? But I wouldn't say, hey, by default, your pricing has to go off of $100 an hour. Sometimes $75 an hour makes sense. Sometimes $50 an hour, will make sense. Like if you're just getting started, you're 19 years old, you live at home, no mobile rig, no nothing. You're, barely getting this thing started. You don't have any bills to pay, no mortgage, no rent, no all this. Like $50 an hour can get you started, right? So it's going to be very contextual to your situation. But I wouldn't say hey, you're not hitting $100 an hour. That's not the way business works. Too many of us, it's the same thing when people say, oh, well, I only want to do correction and coding because that's where the money's at. No, you can go out of business doing nothing but correction and codings. The service you do is irrelevant. If the numbers make sense on the back end, if you're pricing properly, if the prices are profitable, if you're tracking your numbers and you're efficient on all your jobs and you're hitting all your targets, you can grow a 6-figure business doing washes. The service itself, don't get me wrong, there are services that yield better gains than others, for sure, right? For instance, that $800 vinyl wrap that we did, that was to try to make $800 an hour for interior detail would be pretty difficult, right? But nonetheless, though, if you have everything else set up right on the pricing, the what you pay the employees, your efficiency, you're tracking everything, all that is optimized, you can grow a 6-figure business, 7-figure business just washing cars. How do you think it is that lawn care companies that charge $50 a cut for weekly cuts grow to 7 figures? Is it because they're doing the craziest work and that they're doing all this crazy things? No, just mowing lawn, just let's say basic services, mowing lawns, yard cleanup, that basic of services, and they're able to get to 6-7 figures. Is it because they're charging the most? $50 for a cut, right? Or, $60 a cut, whatever the price might be. It's because they have everything else optimized, right? So the service in itself, and don't get me wrong, like a correction and coding, like naturally is easier to yield bigger numbers, which helps. It does help. Like I'm not saying, like I said, like if there's again, like with the window tint, right? Like if we charge $640 and it takes us 2.5 hours to complete, yeah, like that those are much easier numbers to hit than like doing a $600 interior detail, because that probably means it's a really dirty interior, right? So there is a difference. Don't get me wrong. There is 100% a difference. But I don't like using the excuse of saying, oh, well, I don't take on small work because there's no money in there. It's like if you're pricing things appropriately, there's money everywhere. The engine details that we do, we charge $120, $150 for 30 minutes of work, 40 minutes of work. It's a small job, is it not? An engine detail? Super small, super basic. Is it like, are you to say, oh, well, it's a small job, so I'm going to lose money? Like, that's not the mentality you need to have. But you get so stuck in saying, oh, I see all these detailers doing correction and coding, so all the money is there, and anything else I do, there's no money in it. If you're pricing things properly, there shouldn't really be anything that you're losing money on. Like I said, there's things that yield itself to like higher profits than others, for sure. But they say like, oh man, we just booked in a wash, so we'll lose money on this one. It's like, well, why'd you do that? Who told you to price it at that price point? I mean, if you know the correct number to charge to be profitable, why not charge that number? Why accept the consequence of saying, oh, well, we're not profitable on that one? It's like, well, why? Right? And again, it's not to say, oh, charge $100 an hour. No, it's not that, right? It's just if you know how long you take, if you know what it takes to be profitable, if if you understand these numbers, not saying you have to charge $100 an hour, but when you understand those numbers, then you know, okay, like if I charge this, yes, like we'll make money and it makes sense to do this. But don't go by default and say, oh, well, the only way we can be profitable is correction and coatings, right? Because that's not the way. Like you'll always see your business through the wrong lens if you have that mentality, right? Like you'll always put yourself in a smaller and smaller box if you think that's the case. Because the same thing can be said, like, again, like that's why everything is so interconnected, because there's so much nuance to all of this. It's the same way like when I work with clients and they say like, hey, we offer odor removal. And they offer odor removal as like an add-on for like they'll run the ozone treatment for an additional $75, let's say. So like, hey, the interior detail is $250, and then the odor removal is an additional $70, so it's $310 for the service, right? A big part of that as well is how you position your services, right? So every time I work with a client that says like, oh, we offer a ozone treatment for odor removal, it's an add-on to the interior detail of $75 or $50 or $100, right? I'm like, you are devaluing that service, and you are literally hurting yourself, and you're not able to charge a premium just by the way you're positioning that service. So like for us, all of our interior details are like specialty services, minus our standard full interior cleaning. But like we offer smoke odor removal, that's a specialty service. We offer water damage restoration, that's a specialty service. We offer, what's the other one? Mold remediation, that's a specialty service, right? We don't just have a add-on to like, oh, well, yeah, we'll do a ozone treatment to take away the odor. It's like, hey, we're doing a very specific process to get rid of this specific odor, depending on what it is, right? Because they're like a smoke odor versus like rotten milk. Those are two different processes, right? And that's different than mold remediation. So each one is like has a different process and a different objective with those services, but we don't position it as like, oh yeah, like, hey, if you want mold removal, it's an add-on of $100. It's like, no, you position that to where it is a specialty service. Two, it's like, let's say even water damage, like that's a specialty service that we know what to do, and like not many other detailers offer it, and like we have a process and we have documentation and we have like reviews and photos and everything like showing that, oh my God, like, you guys saved my car. So like for us, we position it as a premium service, as a specialty service. And those jobs are typically $1,000, $1,200, depending on like $800 to like $1,400 to $1,800, because the way we position it. And again, that lends itself to saying, oh, hey, we'll charge a higher price. We can hit $100 an hour, or 166 an hour, 150 an hour with these jobs. By the way, we're positioning it, right? Again, this like I'm not saying, oh, like, well, you need more leads, and if you get more like, there's so many things that are interconnected in your business that have to be optimized in order to maximize your results everywhere, right? Like there's so much nuance that goes into it. So I'll end it right there. Again, if you want more training on how we run our business and how we do things and how we scale and run and make money, you can check all that out inside of Detailers Growth Academy. All of my online courses are in there. I'm continuing to add something, or I'm continuing to add content based off of feedback, based on what we're doing. So everything that you want to learn is in that training platform. I'll talk to you guys on the next one.